Halloween may still be 8 long months away, but I think January and February deserve at least some credit for being the unsung heroes that keeps horror alive this time of year. With Oscar season winding down and all the big summer blockbusters still far off on the horizon, the time between the end of January and into late February is about as dead as it can get when it comes to theatrical releases, making it prime time for horror movies that'd otherwise get their faces smashed in by whatever superhero happened to be dominating the screens that month. So, what better time to release not one, but 2 film adaptations of horror games? One of them being a movie I saw just last week. Markiplier's Iron Lung seemed like it was destined to perform horribly. Not only is it an R-rated indie horror film, not only is it an adaptation of a video game, not only is it shot in limited perspective, and not only is the director working double duty as the lead actor, but said director is also a professional YouTuber.
Was that the bite of 87?
You couldn't manufacture something this toxic to the box office if you made it in a fucking lab. As someone who's seen their fair share of movies made by internet personalities, I wasn't exactly going in with the highest of expectations, but I was pleasantly surprised. Mark went and made himself a big boy movie with costumes and sets and visual effects and a story that actually wasn't half bad. It even managed to top at #1 for a bit. Not that it means much this time of year. Don't get me wrong, I'm happy for Mark, and he should be proud of what he did. It's just when your competition is a rom-com starring Kevin James and a Melania Trump puff piece that would have made Marie Antoinette blush, it's not exactly like you're boxing with the heavyweights, you know? Then there's Return to Silent Hill, which I still haven't seen yet, mainly because all the theaters around me dropped it after about a week. I'm sure that's not a bad sign. So while I wait for that movie to inevitably come to streaming, I decided to prep myself by watching the Silent Hill movie that came out before that. Silent Hill Revelation. Ugh. Around the early 2000s, following the technological leap between the 5th and 6th generation consoles, Hollywood started to see the appeal of bringing video games to the big screen. There had been a few that came before in the 90s, but I don't think it can be overstated enough just how much the PS2 and the original Xbox changed the way video games were perceived by the general public. Believe it or not, these graphics had my dad going, "Wow, it looks just like the movie!"
Godspeed, Spider-Man!
So a handful of Hollywood producers decided if video games can look as good as movies, then why not make video games into movies? And the results were... bad. Not to sound like a crotchety old man, but young people really do not understand just how good they have it these days. Borderlands would have been considered average sitting next to the video game movies that came out between 2002 and 2010. It was just awful. And a large part of that was because of this weird German guy that built his entire career on shitting out bad movies. And then spent his free time punching out his reviewers. But that's a video for another time. Among the heaps of trash, though, one movie did stand out as being passable. Christoph Gans's Silent Hill is not what I'd call a faithful adaptation, but it did get the vibes right, and Silent Hill is mostly vibes anyways. It was one of the few video game movies of the time that felt like the creatives involved actually played the games for more than 5 minutes. It also helped that the movie did have more than a few legitimately good scenes in it. And it even managed to double its money on a $50 million budget, which is, like, incredibly risky for a horror movie. Even 2017's It didn't have a budget that big, and that's before you account for inflation. So naturally, since much worse movies had gotten sequels for less, they quickly got to work on Silent Hill 2. But the process wouldn't be an easy one. Roger Avery, the writer for the 2006 film, had put together a script for the sequel, only for it to get tossed out after he was arrested and convicted for vehicular manslaughter. Whoops. By this point, Christoph Gans was also out of the picture, so the script for Silent Hill 2 was just sorta passed around until it eventually landed in the hands of MJ Bassett, who did some rewrites before coming on board as director. Then, in October of 2012, they finally managed to push out Silent Hill Revelation, with none of the creatives from the original film attached to it.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
Now, personally, I'm the sort of person who doesn't think that all directors or creative leads are always irreplaceable, especially when it comes to pre-established franchise. And it's also not to say that Christoph Gans is some visionary director. I mean, he did make Return to Silent Hill after all, and I'm sure there will be plenty to be said about that one when the time comes. Sometimes it's just a good idea to bring in a fresh new face with new ideas and a new perspective to, bring in something new. But in Revelation's case, Gans' absence is, felt. Revelations is, in the most liberal use of the word, an adaptation of Silent Hill 3. So it starts the same way as the game does, which is in a spooky amusement park. Which wouldn't be a bad idea if the amusement park was actually, scary. Get used to this, by the way. There's going to be a lot more bad jump scares before we're through. Anyways, Pyramid Head is here because he's good for marketing, and then Heather is confronted by her inner goth baddie, which proves to be too much for her, and she's burned alive by bad CGI. It was all just a bad dream, though, which is how it plays out in the game. But unlike the game, instead of waking up in an abandoned mall, Heather wakes up to being comforted by Sean Bean, who's just acting his little heart out.
I'll be at home, yeah. The dreams will fade.
Until he gets rudely interrupted by another bad jump scare. Yeah, in case you didn't realize it already, this movie came out during that weird period of time where the 30-year cycle decided that 3D movies were popular again. This is actually one of those aspects that I find hard to riff on this movie for. Like, yeah, it looks stupid, but 3D is one of those gimmicks that only really works when you're playing into it. 3D isn't subtle, but neither is this movie. They were just playing into a trend that was popular at the time. Does it make it age worse? Absolutely. But cartoony 3D is the least of this movie's problems. We learn that Heather is actually a teenage Sharon Da Silva from the first movie, but she goes by Heather now because, honestly, the movie puts it much better than I ever could.
I was Sharon, then Mary, then Kathy, now Heather. You were Christopher, and now you're Harry. Names don't matter.
Now, if you're someone who's familiar with the first movie, you might be asking yourself, how the fuck did Sharon, or Heather, or whoever the fuck she is,
Names don't matter.
get here? Weren't they, stuck in limbo or something at the end of the last movie? Thankfully, this movie's exposition has you covered. Apparently, her mom just dropped her off with Harry. Even sent a little MacGuffin with her, too. As stupid and clunky as these things are, I will give credit where credit is due. Bassett did understand one thing that directors like Uwe Boll and Paul W.S. Anderson would have greatly benefited from, which is that fans of these games want to see them adapted, not reinterpreted. 2006's Silent Hill managed to tread a very fine and very dangerous line. Gans understood what made Silent Hill scary, and he used that understanding to make a film that touched on the themes of the game while still having a completely different narrative. Bassett, I think correctly, understood that she didn't have the chops to continue where Gans left off without completely losing all semblance of Silent Hill's identity. What we ended up with was a movie that tries to resemble its source material on a superficial level, but, you'll see. Anyways, Heather is accosted by a detective who is important in the game, but will not be important in this movie. Because why give a major supporting role to the DEA guy from Weeds when we can give it to Jon Snow instead? Honestly, I think it was a good idea to bring Kit Harington onto this film. Not because he was riding high on Game of Thrones popularity at the time, but because as the descendant of the late Sir John Harington, the inventor of the flushable toilet, there was no other actor better suited for handling a production this shitty. But before stepping into the hell of Silent Hill, first Heather has to go through the hell of being in high school.
You get all of your clothes from Goodwill?
Okay, you know what? Let me make this easier for you. This is the 5th school I've been to since I was 11. Me and my dad would move around. So I do this a lot. So don't bother trying to remember my name because I'm sure as hell not gonna remember yours. Don't talk to me. We won't be friends. I won't IM you or Facebook you or tweet you, read your blog. And whatever you're thinking of saying or doing, don't bother because I've seen it before and I'm just guessing here, but I don't think there are too many original thinkers in this room. And by the time any of you have found out anything about me that's worth knowing, I'll have moved on. How's that?
After class, the movie tries to make an effort at being spooky by utilizing things like build-up and suspense. But then blows its load on the 4th fake-out scare of the movie. And we're only 15 minutes in. Kit Harington, no, I will not be calling him Vincent. He looks nothing like Vincent, he acts nothing like Vincent, and his backstory is nothing like Vincent's. Literally, the only thing they have in common is their name.
Names don't matter.
Tries to comfort Heather, but she's not having it. Can't say I blame her when I'd also be unsettled by someone talking at me in an obviously fake American accent.
You know what? I'm lost. Can't find math. Any ideas?
So Heather calls her dad to let him know that she's being followed by the most conspicuous gumshoe in the world. He tells her to meet him at the mall, but gets held up by the worst kind of Jehovah's Witnesses. And finally, nearly 20 minutes into the movie's 90-minute runtime, we get to the game's starting point. Now, this is where things are going to get good. I'll admit, the beginning was a little bit rough, a little bit rocky, a little bit bad, but now the movie can lean into the source material, this is when things are going to really start to get good. Right? Oh god. It's gonna be one of those kind of movies. One of the things that Silent Hill, the games, not this piece of shit, is really good at is being able to draw players into its atmosphere. Take a look at the start of Silent Hill 2. The first 5 or 10 minutes of the game are spent walking down this long, isolating path with fog enclosing around you, until suddenly you're not entirely sure if you're the only one there. Even Silent Hill 3, in spite of its in-your-face opening, has the patience to give you at least some false sense of security before shifting you back into another horror segment. This movie, though, is like walking through a discount haunted house. None of these scares feel like something that belongs anywhere near Silent Hill. I would say it's because Bassett just didn't know how to go about translating Silent Hill's horror onto the big screen. But 2006's Silent Hill is right there! Just watch the movie and do what they did! Anyways, it's long past the time for this movie to get a kill count started, so Agent Scottson, you gotta go. Fortunately, Kit Harington is there to comfort Heather by awkwardly flirting with her, which she is strangely receptive to, considering she just saw a man get murdered by someone on their way to a Cenobite tryout. Then when she gets home, Sean Bean is nowhere to be found. Fortunately, they left a mailing address. Then after digging through some exposition for later, someone else comes knocking. But this time, it's something worse than demon-worshipping cultists. It's cops without a warrant.
That look like a gang tag to you?
I don't think so. But I've never seen anything like it. Call crime scene, get him down here.
What about the girl?
She's a murder suspect.
By the way, this plot line just ends here. We never see these cops again, and Heather being wanted for murder doesn't ever come up for the rest of the movie. Anyways, it's a long drive to Silent Hill, so that gives them plenty of time to go over all that exposition they found earlier.
It says Silent Hill was originally a prison colony built on ground taken from the native Indians. They called it the Place of the Silent Spirits.
Never build on ancient Indian burial grounds. I thought everyone knew that.
I would make a joke about that being a wholly unoriginal trope, but it's literally exactly that in the game.
And Alessa's revenge was to summon a world of darkness filled with terrifying creatures. This one, it says, is her guardian and executioner.
Wait. Roll that one back, please.
Her guardian and executioner.
Guardian! Guardian, you say?
James! No! James!
Don't get me wrong, I understand that Pyramid Head is easily the most iconic figure in Silent Hill. But even the creator, Masahiro Ito, has expressed that Pyramid Head is massively overused and misrepresented all for the purposes of fan service. And Revelations is the most egregious example of that. But in that same breath, even Konami themselves have spent years trying and failing to chase after the next Pyramid Head, until they eventually came to the realization that even if it does throw away all the subtext surrounding him, seeing Pyramid Head is ultimately what the fans want, so why turn them down if that's what they're willing to pay for? I have a lot more thoughts on this, but that probably also deserves its own video. So they stop at a hotel, where Kit Harington has the most unsurprising confession to make.
It's for my dad. You don't understand.
I do.
No, you don't. How could you?
Because I am a child of the Order.
Nah, really? The guy who just happened to also be a new student and has spent the entire movie stalking Heather is actually a cult member? I'm shocked!
You have been chosen for this!
That's okay though, nearly 2 decades of indoctrination is easily overcome by just a few hours of talking with a pretty girl. Admittedly, this does seem like a lot for Heather to take in. But why try to use this as an opportunity for character development when you can just instead cram in another bad horror scene and have someone get kidnapped? So, with less than an hour remaining in the film, Heather finally arrives in Silent Hill. You can tell the movie is really trying to evoke that sense of isolation by actually stopping and just letting a scene set in, but it just feels off, and not in a good way. We see Dahlia for like a minute. She's only there to drop some exposition for anyone who hasn't seen the first movie already, and could have easily been cut out, but I'm actually really glad they included her, because it's such a prime example to compare to the first film, and immediately be able to see everything that's wrong with it. This is Dahlia Gillespie in the first movie, and I should also note, this is the exact same actress. So why do they look so different? Gans's version appears raggedy and dirty, and the dark and moody lighting complements her in a way that makes her come across as if she's a fixture of the town itself, rather than just someone living in it. Bassett's version is just there. Her makeup is clean, the wig they have her wearing is cheap, and the lighting is blasting into her face to make it look like she's standing on a soundstage. I mean, she is standing on a soundstage, but the whole point of filmmaking is that you're not supposed to make it look like that. Maybe it's because they were operating at less than half the budget of the 2006 movie. Maybe it's because Bassett just didn't have the right cinematographic eye to light the film properly. Or maybe they just didn't give a shit. I don't know. But when you look at these two renditions of the same character using the same actress, Even the most untrained eye can see which one looks better. What follows is admittedly one of the film's better scenes. Heather finds herself in a warehouse filled with creepy mannequins and, scary mannequins, how original. Condemned was doing it better 8 years ago. But it does at least demonstrate that there is some level of understanding around tension building and shot composition going into this. Yet, even so, they still feel the need to shove in a bad jump scare in the middle of it. We're given what, I think at least, is some pretty unique body horror, followed by a monster design that does look like something out of Silent Hill. Unfortunately, unlike the janitor in the 2006 movie, this one is entirely CG. And not good CG either. Also, there's this other lady here. Don't worry about her though, she's just here for the kill count. After that, we get to see what Sean and Kit are up to, and what the fuck is this? This is the cult's lair? 3 red curtains and some torches? Chains and metal grating were out of the budget, I guess? The statue of Valtiel looks cool, though. Too bad he won't be appearing in this movie. Carrie Ann Moss, on the other hand, is appearing in this movie as Claudia Wolf. If Claudia Wolf had a bad wig, and... oh, God. This design is just so... not Claudia Wolf. Claudia is probably one of Silent Hill's most complex antagonists. She's a religious fanatic like Dahlia Gillespie, but unlike Dahlia, her zealotry is born from a place of good intentions. She was childhood friends with Alessa and feels that the only way to justify what happened to her is by seeing the birth of the Order's God through to the end, and hopefully making the world a better place. She's deluded and uncompromising, but she is humble and has a large degree of self-awareness. She wears simple clothes and lives modestly. She hates materialism and despises vanity. So, why do they have her done up in an embroidered corset and sauntering around like a Saturday morning cartoon villain? Yeah, I agree, Sean. This scene sucks. Let's see what's happening with Heather. Oh, she's getting attacked by a monster. Wait. I'd recognize that lanky body anywhere. Is that Doug Jones? No, it's not. But it is his stunt double. Anyways, Heather pays a visit to Brookhaven Hospital, or Asylum. Whatever.
Names don't matter.
She goes there looking for a MacGuffin, but ends up finding something even better. Legendary multi-award-winning character actor Malcolm McDowell? What are you doing here? I say this with full seriousness. This is legitimately the best scene in the movie. I have no doubt that he came into this movie knowing absolutely nothing about Silent Hill, and probably didn't even read the script until he arrived on set, but he just chews up every line of dialogue here.
That I'm a monster. She's far worse than I am. She's also corrupted by the same darkness.
I am looking for my father.
No disrespect to Adelaide Clemens, but she is so out of her depth here, and I think it does really go to show that a bad script can easily be overcome with a good performance. Unfortunately, McDowell isn't long for this world. He gets shot, and then transforms into a stuntman in a monster suit. Well, surely this will be a battle of the ages. After all, these costumes are expensive, and you really want to get as much mileage as you can out, and he's dead. That was anticlimactic. Wait. Do you hear that?
Holy Christ! The dead man coming!
After that, we get another glimpse at decent filmmaking. Unfortunately, it's at the mercy of being compared to the best scene from the previous movie. While I can't speak for Return to Silent Hill yet, the way the movies handle the nurses is actually pretty good. They understand that while they are iconic, they work best when not overutilized, instead condensing them down to a single scene. The way the 2006 film handles them is just so good. The choreography, the body control, the shot composition, the lighting, the lack of music, or really any sound, just makes it so tense. Revelation's take on it is fine. The performers are really good. One of them even reprised their role from the first film. And I like the idea of what they were going for. It does stand out when compared to the rest of the movie, but just like with Dahlia, when you look at what came before, you can't help but notice that there were probably better decisions that could have been made. After getting out of the asylum, Heather and Kit make up. Then Kit runs defense for her, giving Heather another chance to confront her inner goth baddie. This time, though, she chooses to embrace it. Just as everyone should. Pyramid Head takes her on the merry-go-round to hell, and... But wait a minute! This set looks much better! Why didn't we use this one earlier instead of borrowing the local high school's auditorium? It doesn't matter. This movie's almost over anyways. Turns out Claudia is the Cenobite monster from earlier, which raises more questions that I don't feel like thinking about. But that's okay, because Heather's guardian, Pyramid Head, is here to save the day. Sure. Why not? Fuck it, he's her guardian. So Pyramid Head takes a little off the top, and Heather, Sean, and Kit escape. Sean then goes off looking for the sequel, while Heather goes back home to be arrested by the cops that the movie forgot about. And Kit, he goes off to find better movies to be in. Yeah, I got bad news for you, bud. But before we start rolling the credits, the movie has to stop and make sure that the audience knows the team behind it were real gamers.
Problem. You're lucky I came by. Haven't been this way in a long time. Travis Grady.
If that name doesn't mean anything to you, then your reaction is probably, okay, cool, I guess. But if that name does mean something to you, then you're probably just asking yourself, why? And it finishes off by sequel baiting the worst rated mainline game in the series. And that was Silent Hill Revelation. And it was just awful. Although the movie did manage to make a profit in the box office, the audience reaction was nothing short of visceral. The events that precipitated it made Revelations the exclamation mark to a very troubling year for the series. 2012 was supposed to be the year of Silent Hill, but it instead fell flat at every step of the way. Between an underperforming mainline title, a disastrous HD remaster, a critically panned Diablo clone, and a movie scoring in the single digits on Rotten Tomatoes, Konami had no choice but to take a step back and figure out what the fuck they were going to do with the series. Development for what was likely a direct sequel to Silent Hill 3 started in 2013, but was swiftly cancelled. It wouldn't be until PT came around in the latter half of 2014 that people would start talking about Silent Hill again, and we all know how that turned out. So, Revelations would end up marking the beginning of a 12-year-long Silent Hill drought, and that is something that Bassett has expressed a lot of remorse over. In a 2018 interview, she said, "You know, I went into it trying to make a certain kind of film, and it just didn't work. It didn't fall together. Pieces didn't fall together. And that was partly me trying to second-guess what my producer wanted. With Silent Hill, I felt it was more a collaboration, and by the way, I wrote it and directed it, so its failings are my failings. But in hindsight, I should have fought for a more personal kind of vision for it. But I couldn't satisfy the gamers, I couldn't satisfy the audience, it was one or the other. And then they made me shoot it in 3D, which is a horrifying format. I despise it. 2 cameras, the whole thing. You couldn't move the damn camera. You couldn't put it in interesting places. I can claim all these things now. I mean, at the time, you have to go, this is a great movie, and do all the press, and you say how great it is. There's a point where you feel your heart sinking a little bit. You go, I've just not got it right, and I kind of know where it went wrong, but it went wrong so far back up the road, when I should have been saying these things and fighting for this thing and making it this more personal, tense, sexual, less accessible movie. They then close it out by saying, it was just a nightmare dance and I couldn't do it. So I'm very sorry to everyone who didn't like the movie. And while writing the script for this video, I actually learned that MJ Bassett, back in 2017, about 5 years after Revelation's release, came out as trans femme. And with that in mind, and after reading their interview, it just makes me really, really disappointed that Revelations turned out the way that it did. Silent Hill 3 is a story not just about femininity, but personal identity. The struggles of figuring out who you are. Are you the person you were raised as, or are you the person you truly feel you are in your heart of hearts? Even if it challenges everything you've known up till now. I wouldn't be surprised if this was a struggle Bassett was going through at the time of filming. And I'm sure a great story could have been born from that. If given the chance, could Bassett have made a good Silent Hill movie? I don't know. Maybe. I'm not exactly a big fan of their work, but they do seem to have a genuine love for the series. Sean Bean even said that he believes Bassett has a much better understanding of the games than Christoph Gans does. So with that in mind, I don't think that this movie's failings are a result of incompetence or lack of care, but rather the result of a director being put under extreme pressure during a time where they themselves were probably feeling incredibly vulnerable. And that's why whenever I review something, I do try to make a point out of acknowledging the strengths of a product, because any creative product, no matter if it's good or bad, is the result of a lot of hard work, and no one wants for something that they worked that hard on to turn out bad. With that said, Silent Hill Revelations does border into so bad it's good territory, and I actually kind of really recommend that you watch it. If you can get past the gamer rage of seeing Silent Hill 3 badly adapted, then what you're left with is a very silly, very funny, and just very one-of-a-kind horror film that is many, many, many things, but boring? Nah, that ain't one of them.
You must be destroyed!
Not today.